Good evening, YouTube. This is Old School from WhatTheBuck.net, coming to you live and direct from Valrico, Florida, on the eve of my departure to Motown to catch the Bucs and Lions in Detroit at lovely Ford Field. This will be my first trip to Detroit for a game, my first trip to Ford Field. I'm looking very forward to it. I'm being hosted by actually a member of the Lions marketing crew, who happens to be the husband of one of my friends, and he's hooking me up with some pretty dope seats. And in theory, I'm going to get to go down on the field before the game, though I'll have to strip all my Buck garb off as not to offend the locals. So I will do my best to get some pictures and hopefully some video captures when I'm up there at Ford Field. Obviously, this week we've got the Lions, who are 0-10, looking relatively hapless. But, you know, this is another one of those games that could be a trap game. This year the Bucs have proven that they are more than capable of playing down to the level of their opposition, which is not the trait of a potential championship team. This is something we've got to get out of our system. Not only do we have to win on the road, but we have to be able to take a team like the Lions, who have not proven to be particularly talented this year, let's just say, and really kind of step on them early and get the game over with and get out of there with a victory. When you look at what we're going to face this week in the Lions, the first place you have to look, obviously, is at quarterback. Daunte Culpepper, the league's worst sports agent, UCF alum, just like their leading running back, Kevin Smith. It's the magical Knights in the backfield. Daunte, despite putting up decent numbers last week, I think it was 20 of 35 for 200 yards or so, a number of those completions were great plays by his receivers, and you'd be remiss to cover the Lions and not talk about Calvin Johnson. This guy has been phenomenal. Despite playing on one of the worst teams in the league, he puts up points every week, and I can attest to that because he's on my fantasy team, though this week he will be sitting the bench because I'm an idiot and refuse to play anybody who plays the Buccaneers. When you look at the numbers out of the running back position, Kevin Smith has put up 513 yards. He's averaging 4.4 yards a carry. He's got 5 TDs on the year. He's got big boy Rudy Johnson going to spell him. He'll be their short yardage back. Kid's shifty. He's running well behind a relatively makeshift line. You have Backus and a couple of other guys out there that you may know about, but they're not doing a particularly good job in general as an offensive line. But Kevin Smith is doing well running behind them, and he's obviously going to be the person we have to key in on stopping. And like I mentioned, CJ, this guy's a freak. I know a lot of Bucs fans wanted him to end up in Tampa. He did not, but he's out there producing. We're going to have to do a bunch of stuff to try and control this guy. He's just such a physical receiver and an imposing receiver. He's got about 840 yards on the year, a couple of real big plays too. So I expect to see P-Buck, Talib going against him most of the day rather than Rondé. I know that Monty doesn't like moving people around, but if he puts Rondé on this kid, we're in for a long day, even with Daunte Culpepper throwing the ball. One of the keys we're going to have to do with Johnson is to let him see what other players have seen in the league this year. Is when you play the Bucs, there's a chance you're going to be seeing the trainer the next day. Our safeties, Sabby Piscatelli, Sonar Jackson, are going to have to get a hold of him on that second hit when someone holds him up, get a lick in, and get him to stop feeling so confident going across the middle and making those catches. On the defensive side of the ball, this is where we joke around at being the Bucs North. Rob Marinelli and his staff has brought a bunch of ex-Buccaneers up there, from Dwayne White, Chuck Darby, Ryan Neese, Dwight Smith, Brian Kelly, Calvin Pearson. I mean, the list goes on and on. Now, the only one that was actually someone to be concerned about, in my opinion, was Dwayne White. This is a heck of a defensive lineman. He's leading them in sacks. I think he's got 6 this year. But we found out on Friday's injury report he will be out for the game. This is a defense that has not been able to stop many people. When you look at the rankings, I think their overall defense, let me take a look here. Total defense, 31st, giving up 401 yards per game. Now, yards aren't the problem for us. We can pile on yards on anybody. The trick is in the red zone. We're going to have to make sure we're able to punch those things in. Let's see what their scoring defense is. Do we have that on the sheet? I don't know if we do. Yeah, they've given up 30.8 points per game. Again, 31st in the league. The stats on the Lions are just abysmal. If you look at this on paper, we should be able to crush these guys. They've given up 37 sacks. 37. The defense has only actually gotten 2 interceptions, one of them by Dwayne White. So when you're trying to figure out who the worst team in the league is, you normally bring up teams like Oakland, Cincinnati. You were bringing up Kansas City, but they're playing with some spunk now. St. Louis Rams. The Lions have got to be near the top. And so this is going to be one of those games, like I said, we've got to get in there and crush them. A couple of keys to the game we'll get into in a second, but one of the things I want to mention here, the Lions are actually off to their worst start since opening a franchise worst 0-12 in 2001. They've dropped 17 of 18 games on this current streak. Sadly, that one game that they won was against us last year. We went up there and should have killed them last year. We turned the ball over. We played like garbage. They played well. They got the win. And there was no excuse last year for it either. So before we start chalking this one up as a W, you got to realize these boys handed it to us last year in Motown. So from a keys to the game perspective, we got to play to our level, not theirs. This is going to be one of the things that the coaching staff is going to have to enforce. We've got to be able to play at a high level, regardless of who we're playing against. We got to stop Calvin Johnson, and we've got to show improvement in the red zone. I don't care what that means, whether it means going with a super dope Rhino package with Zuda at fullback and BJ Askew at tailback, or learning how to run a quick slant or a fade route, or maybe using our 6'7" tight end, Jeremy Stevens, since no one on the field can even touch that height and reach. But Coach Gruden and the offensive staff has to get that done. From a predictions spot, I'm going to pick the Bucs winning this one 24-10. I'm going to pick Jeremy Stevens as my offensive MVP. I don't think that they have anyone in the linebacking crew that can stay with him. Ernie Sims is a good backer, no doubt, but Ryan Neese is well past his prime, and I think we should get some favorable matchups there. And on the defensive side of the ball, I picked Jovan Hay, who called into the show this Monday. I want to thank Jovan Hay for calling in. I expect to see him ride that what the Buck karma and notch at least one, potentially two sacks when he gets a lot of singles on that defensive line. So, again, this is Old School with whatthebuck.net. Check out our show Mondays and Thursday nights at 7 o'clock live at www.whatthebuck.net, and I'll see you after the game.